Hi, welcome to the chaplaincy interview with our Africana spirituality advisor, Azmera. My name is Warisha Siddiqui, and I'm a student at the Tufts Chaplaincy, and I'm so happy to have you join us, Azmera. Would you please share your name and pronouns?
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Azmera Hammouri-Davis, and I use the She series. And I'm just really excited to be here. So looking forward to diving in.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you were able to do this. So happy. So my first question is, how did you come to be a chaplain at Tufts?
Yeah, so I actually came to this role after being in higher education for 7.5 years, starting as a residential advisor at the University of Southern California, and then working for 3 years in residential education at UC Berkeley for a summer program, working with youth who come from similar communities as myself, as a first generation low-income student, upward bound alum. So I came to sort of higher education through residential education and mentorship and counseling and academic advising. And I learned about Tufts chaplaincy through two dear friends of mine at my program at Harvard Divinity School. And they both happened to be Tufts alum, and they had such amazing things to say about the chaplaincy and the role that the chaplaincy played in their formative years while students. And they are Ana del Castillo and Nicole Morris, who was the peer who said, hey, you really should check out the chaplaincy and the work that's being done. It's aligned with a lot of what you're doing. And so I found out through dear beloved friends and colleagues and just loved ones.
Love hearing that. Love the support from former jumbos. It's really nice to know the network is strong.
It sure is. It really is. I'm so grateful for it.
So you touched a little bit on it, like what led you to pursuing, what led you to the Tufts chaplaincy specifically. But why did you choose a career like a chaplaincy?
Yeah. I've been deeply rooted in my creative practice since I was 4 years old, deeply rooted in cultural education, and seeing that as a facilitator for spiritual resolve and drive. I've been doing capoeira, it's this Afro-Brazilian martial art, for now 15 years. And I would always be I was present with the performing arts and learning about storytelling and narrative through poetry and through capoeira. But in my undergraduate program, I studied visual and performing arts and social sciences psychology. I was really interested in why do people do the things that they do and how do they express themselves? But how are those expressions reflections of deeper core beliefs and values that they have about themselves and about those around them? And that's part of what led me to continue to be in service. I was in the Saved by Grace Gospel Choir, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. I was just really seeking, because I came from a very atypical upbringing where my father was practicing Rastafari, and my mother came from a home where her father was Muslim and her mother was Christian. And so there's always been these questions around core beliefs and value systems, and an understanding that when we can engage in tapping into the wisdom that's present across these traditions, there's so much more possibility for change, for truth, for beauty, for justice. And so I wouldn't say I knew all of that at the time, but as I continued to, live abroad and to study in Brazil, and then to come to divinity school, it began to become more clear to me, my second year in my program, studying theological studies, that chaplaincy, doing pastoral care, like offering up support, accompaniment to those who are suffering in the face of whether it's trauma or whether it's, the gamut. There's extreme trauma and grief and loss, or just needing to process direction, purpose, guidance those are all things that it became clear. I am committed to these questions outside of labels and titles. And I do feel in many ways that I discovered that this is a thing, like, whoa, like there's language for this and this is a field, like wow. And I learned what pastoral care was. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like that feels, it lands for me. And my friends were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, they kind of knew before I did.
Yeah, you were like tackling with like these really, really big questions. And it's funny how like having those questions kind of led you on this journey to working in a career like this, talking about those like big theological questions. I did not know you did capoeira.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I hope when we're back in person, you might be able to like teach some students. It'd be so cool.
Oh, I'd love to. It's always a gift to teach classes. I still teach with a local community organization. But are you familiar with capoeira? Have you done it before?
I've never done it. I've seen it, and it's been like blown me away. Just like how amazing, and it tells a story, and like the movements are insane.
And what I think a lot of people might not know about it, because you see it and it's like in music videos now, and it's like there's movies, and it's become a global craft. And at its origin, it was created where the enslaved would disguise practicing self-defense as a dance, because since they weren't allowed to practice.
Yeah.
So it was rooted in revolution and resistance and resilience, and I constantly am calling on those fabrics of our being to strengthen my own spiritual resolve. And also when students ask, like, what is Africana spirituality? Like, what is it? It's so broad and it's so big, and our diaspora is so vast. And so I find that having some of those pillars of calling on our ancestors and knowing what tools there are to do that, like those tools look different for different people. But yeah, for me, capoeira is one of them.
Yeah, the idea of resiliency is so important, especially as it's like one of the core missions of like the chaplaincy, of like how do you stay resilient and using your faith or your philosophical beliefs to stay resilient. So really love hearing that that's how you did it. So you mentioned capoeira, but is there like one ritual or practice or idea that has been on your mind lately? Like it could be something you've done in the pandemic or outside of the pandemic context.
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about my relationship to objects and to different material that I feel connect me with the divine or something greater than myself. So in capoeira, we have what's something that's called a berimbau, and it's the heartbeat instrument that it dictates the rhythm and the pace of the game. And there's this, it's a string instrument. And so I actually have it with me. It's like right behind me. But there's nothing more beautiful to me than hearing the berimbau play live and hearing call and response songs with other practitioners. And of course, with COVID, that's been more limited. Mm-hmm. So I've just been thinking about the value of that musicality, the sonicity that comes out of our voice, and those ways of quieting the spirit in times of turmoil and deep unrest through just hymns, and using the voice as an instrument.
That's very beautiful, and I've almost forgotten like how much music can be like an out-of-body experience to kind of make you feel like you're connected to the divine times. So that was really powerful, and I'm gonna look into it and hear how it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it's there's so many different. I can share the spelling for you if it's helpful. It's um, yeah, I can share it in the chat. Berimbau.
Oh,
And there's so many different kinds of sounds that you'll hear from it.
it's amazing. You touched a little bit on like believing in something like a higher being. What is something that you believe?
Yeah. So one, I believe that our ancestors are deeply committed to restoring balance and harmony in our lives, and they do that through relationships. So I deeply believe that our relationships, we're relational beings,
Mhm.
and the value of our life and the dignity of our human worth is equal across the board, no matter the race, religion, color, creed, and that we at all times have the ability, no matter where we are, to access that wisdom, the ancestral knowledge, um, when we orient ourselves to the divine. So I believe that you can do that in so many different ways, enjoying a walk outside, hearing the sound of nature, whether it's the birds or the waves come and go, or the rustle of even the cars and the traffic moving, right? Um, I know that Thich Nhat Hanh talks, and this is pulling a little bit on some of what he teaches around mindfulness as the path, and interdependence. Um, so I think, yeah, I'm sharing a lot of different things about what I believe, but starting with
Yeah.
that our ancestors are committed to restoring balance and harmony.
So this ideas of like ancestors is really like a fundamental part of Africana spirituality. Could you just explain a bit in a little bit more detail for our audience, just what is the idea of the ancestor in Africana spirituality?
Yes, yes, and it's such an important question, and it's one that I've gotten often from students who might be curious. What do you mean by ancestors? What does that mean? And when we say ancestors, really they can be anyone who has gone before, who's been in a similar, who's experienced something similar to you, whether it's a similar struggle or battle or obstacle, or moment of triumph, of victory. Anyone whose life and whose life's work has touched you. It can be within your own sort of kinship, matrilineal, patrilineal sort of genealogy, or it can be someone who you're not related to via kin, but that life has touched you. So you'll hear often in vigils or healing circles and spaces, we'll start by centering ourselves, by calling on our ancestors and asking for their guidance and their wisdom. And you'll open the space and everyone can name people. You'll hear Malcolm X, or you'll hear Martin Luther King, or Harriet Tubman, right? These are people who, maybe Joanna Lee, just you'll hear different folks who've gone before, whose life's work have contributed to allowing us to be here right now, and who can also, whose wisdom can help us to get through whatever we're going through, and whatever that may be, depending on who you are and where you're at in your journey.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I learned a lot. I didn't know much about the idea of the ancestor, so that cleared up a lot of my misconceptions about it and like just overall like learning what it is. So I really appreciate your detailed explanation. Moving on to about um, moving on to like what you do at the university. You touched on like being pastoral care being something you learned in divinity school and being so important to the language of what you do. Could you describe what pastoral care is?
Yes, yes. It's such a great question. So I can give you sort of my understanding of pastoral care. It's providing emotional, social, and spiritual support to students to nurture and nourish their curiosity about who they are, and to encourage them, to orient them more towards the wholeness of who they are. So pastoral care can look like discernment, having conversations around not just how you want to be in the world, but why you want to be the way you choose to be in the world. And I think at college, like when students arrive at college, there are so many different points of connection or moments in their own relationship to their spiritual journey. Pastoral care is committed to accompanying students through the difficulties that come with the highs and lows of college. I've had students who have endured, war in their country and disconnection with family, and being present to be in prayer or to be in simple, deep listening and deep sharing as they move through those seasons. So pastoral care, it looks like a lot of presence, listening, caring for the emotional well-being, and thereby the spiritual well-being of students.
Yeah, I feel like the misconception of pastoral care is that you go to someone and they'll have the answer to all like the big questions that you have. But really, pastoral care is about having someone that can accompany you and that help you along, like is walking alongside you on that journey, and is giving you some sort of guidance so you can form your own answers and find where your journey is leading you.
That's right. That's exactly right. I could not have said that better myself. And I think it's such a gift, right? Because it's not saying that we have the answers. It's saying, here are some tools, or these are ways that our wisdom tradition has approached similar problems or issues or concerns. They're not the same. They never can be exactly what you're going through because we're all so unique in our particularities. But may we journey alongside each other, as you said.
Yeah, you touched on like trying to understand like your own spiritual identity in college and just navigating college life as things that people come to talk to you about. Are there any other topics that people come to you when it comes to pastoral care?
Yes. I've had students come to me just to talk about, feeling just stressed in general. It doesn't have to be about larger questions about life direction. Sometimes it's just, I'm organizing this conference and I'm really stressed right now, and I just need to take some deep breaths. And I always love to see students kind of pop into my room, and we just get to have a check-in and a breather. I've talked to students about opportunities that might not be associated with spiritual care, but are intimately interwoven into their own long-term journey in college. So talking with them about meaning making and what they're thinking about when they want to study abroad. Since I did study and live in Brazil for 10 months and kind of do fellowship work with Fulbright. So I've talked to students about that and the meaning that offered me in my own journey. And I'm a very strong advocate for taking advantage of any opportunity you have to go and see and meet people of different cultures and languages. And then I've had students come to me to share their own artistic and creative practice, which is something that I revel in and I find so much joy in. I've had students talk to me about how creativity is their path. And that's, as a fellow sort of music maker and creative spirit, I see and understand that my own spiritual well-being is tied to carving out space for the creativity. And that's, expressive art, sort of therapy and trauma theory go hand in hand when we talk about like reckoning with traumatic experiences, and how, whether it's just painting or singing or expressing and letting out, can be a spiritual release. So those are some of the things that we've chatted about in this semester.
Yeah, there's like no one thing you go to someone for pastoral care. It's literally anything under the sun.
That's right. That's right.
Is there anything you wish students knew more about pastoral care?
Yeah, I think I wish that, one, they knew what it was, because I think that there's just this big question mark. I know for me, when I heard about pastoral care at first, having had friends who were doing pastoral care education, I still had no idea what it was. But I think I wish that students knew the joy that can be found in the meaning making that comes with pastoral care. Because when you're able to make meaning about the things that you're going through, there's such a rich reward in feeling more clarity on your purpose. And so I think I wish that students knew that there's also no right or wrong way to go about being in conversation about spiritual direction. That when you're breathing, your heart is beating, you're alive, then that in and of itself signifies that your spirit is present as well. And therefore, you don't have to be a certain type of person to be interested in spiritual life and care. It doesn't look one way. Devotion doesn't look like one thing. And there's so many different ways to access your spiritual life.
That's amazing. I hope students watching this will have gain a better understanding of pastoral care, and we'll use it because it's a great resource that we offer at the Tufts Chaplaincy. You've joined the chaplaincy this year, so you're fairly new to Tufts. But where would you like to see the Tufts University Chaplaincy go in the future?
Yeah, I joined in September of last year, and was so honored to see how multi-faith engagement can offer up cutting edge and real life solutions to some of the most pressing problems we have around conflict resolution, drawing on a religiously plural space where we're actively acknowledging that, I believe that faith at its best, and this is drawing on my dear friend Alexa Kleinmeyer, who constantly she's a companion of mine. And before coming to div school, I asked her why she was interested in studying theology, and she said, I believe that religion at its best can increase empathy and understanding, and at its worst, it increases violence and warfare. And I think we see that beyond the academy or the institution. We see that in our society and in our international relations. And so I think I would love to see the university chaplaincy continue to build its capacity for serving the least of these, for serving those on the margins, and taking up an active role in making sure that the commitment to anti-racist policies is implemented, to imagining what transformative justice looks like without a carceral state and needing to sort of be punitive and curt and short with the least of these, that the chaplaincy can be a place where some of those ideas can be taken seriously.
Wow, I really do hope that you're able to implement this vision for the future of the chaplaincy during your tenure year. And this is just the first step in that journey.
Oh, I am grateful to be walking alongside a brilliant team that is committed to that work in different ways. So yeah, I'm hopeful. More tangibly, with our Africana spirituality chaplaincy, in the next 2 months, we'll be forming an Africana spirituality council, which is a student e-board who can sort of be leading and guiding us in naming what their needs are and the needs of the spiritual needs of our larger Africana community.
That's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that's happening. So as a chaplain, what has been your most memorable moment so far? I know you'll have a bunch in the future, but.
Oh my goodness. There are so many already. And I will say the Martin Luther King Symposium that took place February 3rd, where we got to hear from not just Jelani Cobb share his wisdom the importance of this moment we're in. But we got to hear from Harrison Clark share his gift of song. That was a really a beautiful high for me, to be in community and see student expression and engagement integrated with just the brilliant minds of our committee and our guests. That was such a gift. And I think I have there's so many. I think being a part of offering sort of guest lectures with the music department has also been a really rich opportunity to talk more deeply through the role of music and women in music in capoeira. And I think just our team meetings every week, I really enjoy getting to know my colleagues. We have some deep theological reflection and learning from different traditions. I'm really into poetry, so learning more about, Jewish poetry, poetry within that tradition, or within the tradition within Islam, within Hindu sort of ways of life and ways of knowing and being. Have been so rich. And I guess I'm not giving you just one, so I'm sorry.
No, I loved hearing about all of them. But so far your time at Tufts, have you had like a favorite chaplaincy or community event that you've attended?
Yes. Well, I will say our retreat with the Hindu chaplaincy at the beginning of this year, the Unlearning Retreat, where we got to hear from Professor of African Cosmologies, Liseli Fitzpatrick, and a Akan priest, Akosua of the Ghanaian tradition. That was probably, that's something I'm still reeling off of and feeling the energy carried. And we had like 18 students to show up for 2 days of being on Zoom with us, which was so generous of them to be present for 2 days back to back for like 7 hours, and just sharing of themselves so generously. That was really incredible to see. So I think that would be the one that's just lifted my spirit.
Wow, I really do hope you'll be able to do that retreat again in person and just feel that energy and that solidarity when people are reflecting together. That's so powerful, just being in the same space.
Yeah, and when just seeing connections be made, or like light bulbs go off for people that don't know each other at all, doing that through Zoom, and then imagining what that might be like in person.
Yeah, we really have learned the best ways to utilize Zoom to have like these really deep, thoughtful conversation in these moments, but nothing can replace the in-person beauty of it.
That's right.
But last but not least, what is a fun fact that we should know about you?
Oh my goodness. I used to
tell us some really cool things like capoeira, and you've been in Brazil for 10 months.
I used to struggle with this question, but now my partner was telling me this should be your fun fact, and I was like, you know what? I guess it's a different fact. I don't know if it's fun, but I do love to eat. I love fruits, and I especially love bananas. I used to love banana with Nutella, banana with peanut butter, banana with my cereal.
Sounds so good.
Yes, the way that I eat my bananas, I don't just peel them like most people would, because it makes sense, but I love to just crack the banana. I just go like this and I crack it, and then it's just this perfect, it always breaks like with the perfect kind of, it looks like you've cut it with a knife, but you just crack it, and then I get to have sort of like two feedings of my banana. It's really weird, but that, I don't know, maybe it's fun, maybe it's not, but it's just something I noticed with the help of loved ones that I do. I'll say it's fun. It's different.
I'm gonna try that. See, does it break evenly, like clean?
It is. It's the most perfect. It's amazing. It's just like, and once you do it once, I just need to warn you, because you probably are not going to be able to not do it. Like it's like it's fun to just oh, and here we are. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and like answer a couple questions about who you are and just what you do at the Tufts Chaplaincy.
Thank you so much for taking the time and for these questions.